Poland, members of the Control Board. My name is Edna Cruz. I am a Mass Senior Action member, and I am proud to stand in solidarity with those who depend on the ride for transportation. What more can we say? This story seems all too familiar. We have told you that cutting the ride service will harm those who depend on it, that many will not have an alternative, but it appears that this policy has already been decided. We acknowledge that the ride is an expensive service to operate, and we commit to work with you and the MBTA to develop policies that will reduce the cost of the ride without causing irreparable harm to those who depend on it. But we cannot work in good faith while those cuts hang over our heads, waiting to drop at any moment. We know you're under great pressure to cut costs and raise the revenue for the team, and that you look at the cost of the ride and ask yourself, how can we not cut the service? But we are here once again to tell you that there are other options. You can reduce the budget without causing harm to the others. The ride is a lifeline for many of us who depend on it. Without the ride, many would have no way to get to medical appointments, no way to visit family or friends, and many would become prisoners in their homes. I ask, have you told the governor what you plan to do? Have you told him that your vote will take away transportation from thousands of seniors and people with disabilities with no options? Did you tell him that your vote will drive up medical costs, keep people isolated and alone? Did you tell him that there are other budget-saving options that will not cause harm? Did you tell him that we vote to eliminate premium service? That vote contradicts all of his other efforts in health care, elder affairs, and human services, which encourages community engagement and participation. Did you tell him that those who would be harmed by your vote are willing to work with you to create a real solution without harm? And did you tell him that this means so much to seniors and people with disabilities across the Commonwealth, that we're willing to put our own freedom on the line, that you cannot imprison us with your reckless policies? We call upon you to reject the proposal of service for the ride. We call upon you to instruct the MBTA to work with the stakeholders, including BCIL and Mass Senior Action, to develop policies to reduce the budget without harm. If you choose to proceed, we must defend what is right.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. You tell them.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. I'm going to,
To stop your reckless policies.
me too.
My name is John Clark. I stand with those who depend on the ride, and I am prepared to put my freedom on the line to stop this reckless policy.
My name is Justin Rose. I stand with those who depend on the ride. I'm prepared to put my freedom on the line to stop the reckless policy.
My name is John Robinson. I stand here in solidarity with all disabled people and all senior citizens, and I'm willing to put my freedom on the line because engaging in a policy would destroy human beings, destroy the lives of human beings who are worth just as much as every able-bodied person in this world.
That's right.
I stand with those who depend on the ride, and I am prepared to put my
John Radloff, and I stand with those who depend on the ride, and I'm willing to put my freedom on the line in order to stop this reckless policy which threatens human life.
My name is Colleen Asinano. I depend on the ride, and I am prepared to put my freedom on the line to stop reckless policy.
And I am with Mass Home Care, which is an organization representing 29 agent service access points and area agencies on aging. Thank you for the opportunity to submit this testimony, which I also did type in out in the lobby. This afternoon, the MBTA Finance Board has to decide whether or not it has another ghost in its closet. The board will vote on whether or not to turn the $210,000 premium ride program used by the elderly and disabled into another ghost program. The board could turn the ride's premium service into a ghost program, or it could help the elderly and disabled. There's been enough talk already about, you certainly know what this is going to do. I'm not going to repeat. I've flashed my testimony. You know that 100,000 rides are at stake here. This coming year, the seniors will be living on the same Social Security check that they got last year. There's no COLA increase. Now they might lose their senior ride program. You've heard the term shut-in. Well, no senior wants to be called a shut-in, but that's exactly what the MBTA will be creating if you put the brakes on premium rides. Another point that I think has been made that I think bears hearing again is for these folks, they have no alternative transit service. They can't afford cabs or wheelchair vans. They don't have family or friends to drive them. If they lose the ride, they may skip a doctor's visit and end up being driven to the ER in an ambulance instead. Just what the healthcare reformers and taxpayers of this state are trying to discourage. We have enough shut-ins in Massachusetts. We don't need to create more. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, microphone on? Yes, I do. Address item 3 on the agenda, the operating budget, and principles for the operating budget. First of all, I consider operations to be more important than capital, because capital is useful only to the extent that it contributes to operations. The two items that are up for discussion by the board intrigue me: an increase in MBTA revenue and an improvement of customer experience. I imply by the latter service and reliability. And my suggestion to the board is you seriously look at on-time performance of all rail operations, particularly subway operations. Because the data I have for the Red Line, if you were to do on-time operations, you get a 40% capacity increase by running those trains. What this means from the London experience is you should also expect a 20% increase in ridership, half of the capacity growth. Those riders contribute revenues to the team. I estimate somewhere between $15 to $20 million a year in additional revenues from running the trains on time. How much of that additional revenue could go to supporting services of the ride? I suspect it's much more than we would get if we tried to sell alcohol advertising in the tea. I thought the mayor of Boston had gotten rid of that idea. I think we should really look at the ways to increase revenues and service at the same time, and that's what on-time performance gives you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser.
Individual plaintiff in the accessibility lawsuit. I'm here to discuss two issues today. Our collaborative effort with SWA, System-Wide Accessibility, they have been absolutely wonderful working with our community to help ensure accessibility on the T. We've gotten better elevators, we've gotten accessible fare gates and more accessible stations in general. However, in my experience, I am a person who utilizes all types of transportation options. But there are some places that the T will not allow me to go. So I need to utilize the ride. And my brothers and sisters today stand up and they say to you, they need the ride, I need the ride. Transportation is a civil right and not a privilege.
That's right.
And lastly, I want to reflect upon the board because life is funny. 1 minute you think you got the world by the tail, and then the next you have health problems. And I wish none of this for you, but someday you may need the ride, and I hope to God it's available for you. Time and attention, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Judge Patrick King, please.
Good afternoon, Secretary Pollock, members of the Control Board. I'd like to thank you for all your hard work in trying to bring financial stability to the MBTA. I know it's a very difficult task that you have for yourselves. I've been a user of the T for more than 70 years. I'm a retired Superior Court judge. In 2007, I was appointed by the Federal District Court to oversee the settlement between the MBTA and the plaintiffs who brought a lawsuit with regard to the lack of compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Over the past 10 years, we've seen a tremendous improvement with regard to accessibility through the hard work of T management and T employees, despite very meager resources. Even though a tremendous amount of work has been accomplished, a lot more needs to be done. As you consider making your report to the legislature with regard to the needs of the MBTA, I would urge you to include the required funds necessary to make the system 100% accessible. And that's a large number. It probably approaches $2 billion. It can't be done overnight, but there should be a plan to do it over time so that eventually the system becomes accessible for all persons. With regard to your short-term objectives, as you consider such things as privatization, please keep in mind that whatever private entities you use to provide services need to comply with the ADA, and that includes appropriate training for bus drivers, having the appropriate equipment so that all persons can be served by whatever service you decide to utilize. With that, I'd like to thank you again for your very hard work with regard to this difficult task. I'd be very happy to meet with you privately at any time to discuss further what I've been doing over the past 9 years. I also engaged a consultant, Chris Hart, who's been helping me, and he can be a tremendous resource as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge King. Thank you for that. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Greg Sullivan from Pioneer Institute. It's a great honor to be able to appear before this organization. I formerly served as State Inspector General. When I was in that capacity, my office did a report, an extensive review of the MBTA's paratransit system, the RIDE, reviewing practices in 50 states and comparing the RIDE operations and budget to those elsewhere. At Pioneer Institute, we've also done a lot of work in this area. Our conclusion was that the RIDE costs approximately $49 for a one-way trip, and that compares to approximately $17 for a paratransit trip provided by the Human Services Transportation System for Medicaid. I want to explain to everybody in this audience today that the issue before the state right now, before the MBTA, is how can we bring costs down? And this body, so far, in my opinion, has done a tremendous job of identifying the range of possible solutions. And there are many. When you look at the practices around the country, I hear the voices of people who've testified, and they really touch me. I realize that there are people who are living in communities in situations who depended on the ride for transportation. That's why the response of the government to this situation has not to be a blunt tool, but a sensitive one. There are many options that you've already identified. One, you've recommended that the ride use Uber and Lyft. Now, to me, that's brilliant. I want to commend this kind of thinking. Why? I took an Uber trip. I asked the driver, I said, it's a $49 trip for the ride under the $916 million contract that was signed by the prior administration for the ride. I said to the Uber driver, what would this ride cost? A 6 miles ride in Uber. That's the average trip for the ride. Is it $49? No. He said it was $12. This is something that you've proposed. This is one of the reforms that you're trying to address. Another one that you've recommended is trying to make sure that more people end up on the fixed route systems. Now, I commend you for this because this is what's been going on in the country. The federal government gave awards to 4 states for their accomplishment in getting people who can.
Mr. Sullivan, you will be on 2 minutes.
Thank you very much for listening to me today. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan.
I'm the Policy Director for Transportation of Massachusetts, statewide coalition of 58 member organizations working for better transportation choices across the state. We recently submitted a comprehensive letter to you in advance of your report. We support many of the reforms that you're pursuing that will make the system more efficient and improve the customer experience, but really want to emphasize one point that we put in the letter. We really hope that you'll request the full $261 million that the Transportation Finance Act of 2013 envisioned going to the T. Now, we don't feel like that all has to go to operations, and we commend your pursuit of cost savings. Assuming that you can make cost savings for the operating deficit and while minimizing service cuts and keeping fare increase to 5% every 2 years, we hope that you can take what's left of that $261 million, which hopefully will be significant, and put that into capital. So that is something I'd love to emphasize from the letter. Additionally, I also want to talk about the importance of accessibility at the T and the important strides made with the system-wide accessibility initiative known as the Program for Accessible Transit Infrastructure. We fully support the approach being undertaken by PATI, and we think it's a proactive and data-based approach to providing equality of access to people with disabilities on the fixed route system. And I know this is on the agenda you'll be hearing about later, so I just wanted to briefly mention TFRMS's support of that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Angela Hansen from BCIL.
Hi, I'm Angela Hansen. I've spent 7 years in area nursing homes, and then happily 3.5 years ago, with the help of BCIL, I was able to leave and found an apartment, but the only apartment I could find was in Quincy, and I was happy to realize I was just a block from the T station, which is wonderful. In really every nursing home I was in, I had been able to take the T, which was, great, and I relied on it and loved it, really. I'm from Denver, we don't have that super. So, unfortunately, the stop that I live by is Wollaston. So I thought, in my T-Liz sort of way, let's get a petition out. And then I found out that they've been sending petitions to you for over 20 years. Perhaps if you check your circular file, you'll find their dated signatures there. I live in a 12-story building full of elderly and disabled people. I'm across the street from a 10-story building full of elderly and disabled people, and T is a block from all of us. And all of us have to rely on the ride. And it's like so ridiculous. So now lately I've started taking the ride up to North Quincy and waiting at McDonald's because the ride always gets me there way too early. And then taking the T in, and then when I come back, I wait at McDonald's for the ride to come pick me up and take me home. I feel like you owe me those rides. I feel like you should pay me for those rides. I don't want those rides. I want to get off at Wollaston. All right? Yeah.
Olivia Richard, please.
Convenient, I'm right behind Ann.
Okay.
All right. My name is Olivia Richard. I am one of the co-founders and a member of Mass Adapt, which is a chapter of National Adapt. If you remember the hell that we put you through back in the 70s, 80s, to get lists on buses and such simple things. Lists. And then we got notice about this on Friday. That you were planning on messing with people's freedom. Now, a little bit of background, because I know most of you weren't around in 2012 at the T. I know Professor Pollock, you were at Northeastern, fellow Husky. I've done a little bit of consulting for them. And I recognize you, obviously. I was involved in 2012 when we got shafted. In June 2012, the MBTA began implementing some very draconian policies backed by their rubber-stamping Accessibility Advisory Committee to the T. These changes included establishing an in-person assessment to eligibility as a requirement of being allowed to use the ride, which involved, I kid you not, I just went through this in October, and I got a 4-page letter from Carol Joyce Harrington about it. Being forced to walk around the Trek parking lot. How did I get 30 seconds already? Is it just because I'm exposing the Trek walk? Yeah. To see how far you physically can walk or roll before you collapse.
Oh, yeah.
In a seeming 9-to-5 endless parade of the disabled, the elderly, and the huff and puff. If we're willing to go through that to get the ride and use it, why would you cut people off of it? It's very clear. If we are willing to go through that, if we are willing to be embarrassed to the T, why would you do the wrong thing when the MBTA has been doing the right thing for almost 3 decades? Professor, I recommend you get in contact with Nancy Shabby. She's a professor of physical therapy who teaches disability studies at Northeastern. Miss Rhoda and I talk in her class about life with a disability and about the importance paratransit has in our lives. Thank you.
You tell them, Olivia.
Stephanie Zayas, please. Stephanie Zayas.
I am here to talk because I found out that everyone else that the ride was cutting programs, and I just got accepted into the ride. So excited to finally have freedom to be able to go places on my own. Well,
You guys proceed with this. I'm cut. My town, Redfield, I no longer have the right eligibility. It's gone. My freedom is gone. And I run a business called, or I run an organization, a nonprofit organization called Pathway, Providing Access to Happiness. We provide events in the Boston area for people who are disabled. Almost all of our members use Paratransit, use the ride to get to our event. They would not have anywhere to go. There would be nowhere for them to get on the bus. It wouldn't be possible. Their slots would be cut too. You're cutting more than just. Think about what you want to do. You want to go, you want to involve, you want to have engagement in life. You go to work. Well, I can't go to work if I can't get there. So how is that there? And all this discriminating, where all the people that are working, they all took the ride to get to work. And you're going to cut that. You're going to cut all of that. And I'm sorry, but I just don't see how you can look at all of us here and look at all the people that have worked so hard to just come into independence and just take it away.
I guess what I'd like to say is, I was given 3 to 5 years to live. That was approximately 11 years ago. And I chalk it up to the fact that we have wonderful Boston and the Boston Hospital that have kept me alive all these years. But raising the prices, cutting services, just timing my death. I mean, I guess I'm kind of the face of the riders. And I don't want to die just to save somebody some money. And that's basically what has happened. Please, when you think about cutting our services, do nothing like case. I have grandbabies that would love to see Burma. I have doctors that are wonderful. Boston, people come from all over the world to be treated in Boston Hospital. And I thank God that I'm close enough. But without the ride, I'm dead. So please just remember that. Thank you.
You tell them, Nancy.
To all of the board members and all of the advocates, I say hello. My name is Elaine Hamilton, and I've been a teacher for about 100 years in another state. And I came to Boston, and I was in an accident, and I lost both of my legs. So since I was not a resident here in Boston, they shipped me to a nursing home. What Rob and Boston Center for Independent Living helped me to get into the community. So I'm about 10 blocks away from Jackson and about 20 blocks away from Evanston. And in the neighborhood that I'm in, I tried one day with my wheelchair to reach it to Jackson Square. I got halfway there and ran out of gas because I have to wait 3-4 years before I can get another wheelchair. And I have too many medical problems. I could not even catch the T. I have to catch the ride. It went up 100% last year. Every day to go to 2 or 3 places, to go to my medical places. And I like to do my own shopping and my own cooking. And I go to church and I'm a member of the Eastern Stars and the Big Seal and the NASDAQ and with my sorority. And this really would cut out. Trying to please the governor, you guys, is not fair to cut my independence. And what about the snow? What about the rain? what about the summertime? I live in Jamaica Plain, and guess what? The sidewalks, I gotta meet with the commissioner, are terrible. I have to get out in the street, and I almost fell out my wheelchair twice. There will be a massive lawsuit, because we're trying to get the street, okay, of Jamaica Plain fixed. I have to get out in the street where the cars are, because the sidewalks are damaged. And, I couldn't even make it here today hardly without my red hat, my coat, my gloves, and my thing. And do you all expect us to get out in the snow? The snowstorm that we had last year, and the rain, and the heat? I could have a mad heat stroke. That is not fair to please the governor. And I ask that you all look inside of your souls and do like the Pope said. Remember the cardinal rules, because this could happen to you. I came up here with 2 legs, and now I have none. It was just a brief accident. You guys have parents, you have children, grandkids. You need to be something called compassionate. Show compassion, because this could very well happen to you. I pray to God it doesn't. And then I cannot even make it on the sidewalk to go to Stop and Shop or nowhere because of my wheelchair. When the man came to my house, he took off my wheelchair real quick. The first 2 wheels, they dry rotted. They exploded in his hand, and the other 2 wheels were coming off because I have to go to Jamaica Plain. I have to try to go shopping. I have to catch the ride just to go down the street because I cannot carry food on the ride. On the train. I cannot carry my bags. At least with the T, the van driver will help you with a certain amount of baggage to get on the ride. But how else will I do this? So I did not call this card for myself, but by the grace of God, I've accepted it and learned to deal with my disability, and I'm trying to move forward. But I cannot move forward if you want to stab the knife in my backboard the same $1 bill. No fair.